Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. And this is your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Going forward from here, there will be lots of spoilers in tonight's coverage, the end coverage, the last episode of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy, because the best stories are told after dark.
Tonight's drink of the episode we're calling The Turning, which is basically our version of a Paloma. So what it's going to be is basically tequila, grapefruit juice, soda, water, agave, lime juice, fresh lime juice. And the reason for calling it The Turning is because we know what's going to happen to Saeris. And it's also this kind of bitter drink. It's good, but it's very acidic. And I just felt like it really encompassed Kingfisher in this moment too, of his about what's about to go down. So yeah, so
salty. What's on the side?
Oh, tahini. It's two limes and tahini is the garnish for this, and it's really good. It's like I said, it's crisp. This one I actually didn't put tequila in, but the one for the drink of the episode, of course, will have tequila. I did it as a mocktail, and it's really good as a mocktail as well.
For all of our listeners, all of our drinks can be alcoholic or mocktail. If you don't drink alcohol, you can still enjoy them with us if you drink or you don't.
Yeah, exactly. So let's immerse ourselves now back into Yuvelia. But as a whole, we're going to be really primary here. We're going into the Labyrinth and Gilethrye. So it's going to be pretty dark here as we keep going. So this
the
episode
horror elements are wild.
They're horroring.
Yes.
Yeah, it's intense in this one for sure. They're horroring. I don't know what to say. Yeah, they're just... Yeah, it's intense. And we're going to explore chapters 41 through 45, but we're also exploring the Kindle bonus chapter, which is from Kingfisher's point of view, which is at the very end. So if you haven't read the Kindle bonus chapter, you're going to get a taste of it here. So whether you're reading along with us or you're just here for the book talk, we are, as always, glad that you're here.
Chapter 41 is titled Gilethrye. And here we have Fisher staggered over to Saeris. His body is covered in lacerations and he can barely walk. And here's where we're going to get the story on Gilethrye and what Fisher was essentially conned into. Heron conducted most of the payback for what Fisher had done to him in Zilvar. And if we remember back into the beginning chapters when Kingfisher came out of the Quicksilver, he made sure Heron had his due diligence for almost killing Saeris, that he sent the Quicksilver on to Heron, and that's why he's in the state that he is, or part of the reason why. I'm sure there's more abuse that he had from Madra since then. And then Fisher told what happened. No, he told what happened in Gilethrye. Essentially, there are tens of thousands of vampires gathered at the gates. He couldn't move enough warriors through his shadow gate. Yeah, feeders, not our Twilight vampires. They are our zombie.
Well, not the lords either. Vampires. These are like the feeders. No. Feeders.
Yes. Yeah. And he couldn't move enough people through his shadow gate. We know he does shadow gates, so he can transport people. He couldn't move enough wolves, and so he brought the wolves to try and save as many people as he could. And Belicon is like, you brought 7 to defeat tens of thousands. How dare you? That's so insulting. And it wasn't enough at all. The horde was already inside the city. The way this is going to look on screen, if they do like a flashback of him telling the story, and we have how I'm picturing this is we see the story for Netflix. We see the story happening, but we have Kingfisher's voice describing the events. So like a very storytelling. That's how I'm picturing this happening.
Sets got it.
Yep. And they go into the city. That they were celebrating the festival of the first song, which made the Horde's job so much easier because they were out, they were celebrating, they literally just swept over the city like locusts and just devouring everyone, either turning or killing anyone in their path. Fisher's like, I have to do something. He left Ren to find Malcolm, but he ended up finding Belicon first instead. And he refers to Bellicon as the bastard who murdered my mother. This is where we know he's known for a very long time. What was the truth with what happened with his mother? And Bellicon responds, your bitch of a mother was supposed to be the greatest oracle of her time, but she was useless, he cackled. I admitted as soon as she was done pushing out the brat I forced upon her, I slit the bitch's throat. I was sick of her fucking lies. So we know she's an oracle. She was prophesizing what Bellicon's future would be, and he didn't like the truth because why would he? Clearly, he was like, she's lying. But we've discussed that she likely took an oath, like Kingfisher and his father, and how they literally cannot lie. That is physically impossible for them. This is just an excuse. He didn't get his way, so he's going to kill her. Disgusting.
Right.
Absolutely disgusting.
Love that. Classic.
Then Malcolm arrives. He sees Bellicon. Malcolm arrives on scene, and that's where he's, oh, they're allies, and they've been allies since before the Blood Curse. So that way back. This is before Malcolm became a vampire, when he was Fae. And he just found out about Madra today. Like, as they're in the Labyrinth this day, he had no idea Madra's like in cahoots with him as well. Madra's a new
sibling.
story to him.
Fun.
Yeah, another sibling from before the Blood Curse. And he went to bargain for the few citizens in Gilethrye who were alive, which is probably just a small handful at this point when he actually reaches Malcolm. But he was desperate because he needed to save them, or somewhat save them. And Bellicon is so dirty. They're both so dirty. I hate this. Pissed me off so bad. So he finds a coin, and there's one side of the coin is a leaf and the other side is a fish. It's a really tiny coin, small as your thumbnail.
Thought of it as like a penny.
Yeah. And the whole deal is, if I flip the coin and it lands on the ground, if it lands on the ground, fish side up, he would take the city and they would meet in the battlefield on the later date.
A later date,
Yes. And if it lands leaf side up, Malcolm will call off his horde. And what they did, Bellicon literally flips the coin and Malcolm snatches it in the air. So it never touches the ground. But Bellicon was really tricky in how he was like, okay, until it touches the ground, you can't talk about the outcome of this. You can't talk to anyone about Bellicon and Malcolm being on the same side. You're not allowed to speak about anything. Literally, that's why he was so bound, because until the coin dropped, he couldn't talk about anything that was going on. Yeah. He was stuck, and the feeders swept over the city. And what Fisher had to do, essentially, was shut the gates and burn all the citizens inside alive. Feeders and whoever was in Gilethrye alive. And that's why they're all in this eternal state of melting, because he didn't want them. Yes, he made that choice because he didn't want 200,000 Fae turning into an army for Malcolm, because that would have swept away all of them. So that was his choice to further protect. Yeah, and that has clearly haunted him, which, of course, literally the Anorath Mor, these are the people that want freedom. And really they're twisting this. How Bellicon and Malcolm have twisted this position that he is in into, like, guilt is just so fucked up. All of it.
It's dark. Yeah. This is definitely the nightmare. There's no. To make matters worse, Malcolm's, oh, look, I created this labyrinth too. And the coin for you to go find it is in the center of this. It's a maze. So a labyrinth is a maze. And there's a coliseum that is around this with all of the people chanting, right? And all the bodies are there. They're not able to move on. So they're just perpetually imprisoned there until Fisher can find this coin and make it drop. He just needs to make the coin fall to the ground to end their suffering. At this point, after the story is done, walks by and touches Fisher's jaw. She comments about how, oh, Malcolm lets her play with his toys. And I can't emphasize enough that the audiobook does a really good job. I know we've talked about this a lot while we've covered this book, but the audiobook book for two actors to do these voices back to back, they did a very good job of playing all the different characters and being between these three specifically. You could really tell who was Bellicon, who was Madra, who was Malcolm, in the way that the male voice actor and the female voice actors did a great job with that. Her voice is that high-pitched, wispy type voice that we heard, and just it's on a chalkboard type sound, not pleasant. And Fisher comments like, "Oh, I play back," and he'll find her. "I'll be in the shadows, bitch, waiting for you." And that was like the way I was like, "Yeah, tell her, Fisher." So Madra asks, "Oh, what have I done to deserve such special attention from you? Like, why would you hate me? You don't even know me." And this is where Fisher reminds her that, "Yes, I do know who you are." He says, "You spayed my mate when she was a fucking child. For that alone, I'll make your undying existence an unending agony, an eternity of suffering, the likes of which your evil mind cannot comprehend. Will know no peace at my hands. I will destroy your empire and erase your name from the annals of time. When I am done with your legacy, Madra, the undying will never have existed, and you'll live on at my behest, suffering for all of eternity. And no one will know, and no one will care." And the way that I just was like, holy shit, he is mad.
Vengeance.
And also, is this...
Hell hath no fury.
Right. But also, is this foretelling? Because I hope so.
I hope so too, because Madra's still alive after all this nonsense. She
gets out. Yeah, she pieces out.
As soon as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Malcolm continues the story and is, "Oh, you left out certain parts of this. Fisher entered the labyrinth despite Malcolm's interference, and the creature and all this, he kept trying to find this coin. He finally made it to the center of this labyrinth, which is a maze with all these different creatures, all these different paths that change. The walls changed. The walls are made of this obsidian rock that's black and slippery and sharp. And he spent 102 years trying to get to the center. He finally gets to the center, and he spends the next 8 years trying to find the coin, which we know he's unsuccessful at. Malcolm calls him my love at this point, and we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode, but we didn't get too far into it. But Fisher flinches when Malcolm calls him this. And one day, Taladeus is checking on Fisher, and the ground shakes beneath him. This is where that Quicksilver pool is revealed. This is how Fisher finds Saeris, and this is where she had solace from the Quicksilver and released everything. But the fact that Malcolm calls Fisher my love, I think further emphasized what we talked about, how there's a very clear, disturbing relationship that Malcolm either really desperately wants to have or has had in some shape or form with Fisher, which is, it's disturbing to say the least.
There's
not good.
An air of possession that he has of Fisher, and it's very like mind, body, and soul, not like he had him trapped in the labyrinth and that wasn't enough. He wants to own Fisher, have his magic. And he has a conversation with Saeris, and like he's disgusted that this half human, or mostly human, is his mate. He feels like he's owed Fisher for his power. And also, I want to say, where the Quicksilver pool opens up, this is actually where we see the Kindle POV chapter at the end of the Kindle version of the book. So that specific scene is what is mentioned and what's described from Kingfisher's POV when the Quicksilver pool opens up and he finally gets to leave.
Right, him with Taladeus, yes, that we see. So excited to talk about that. So there's this conversation that keeps going. Malcolm had offered, this is the thing that's weird, is Malcolm had offered him a chance to leave many times, but he didn't until the Quicksilver appeared. And he asks why he chose to leave then. What had Malcolm offered? And I think what had Malcolm had offered was he wanted to feed from Fisher. And he also wanted Fisher to feed from him. One bite. He wanted Fisher to take one bite from him, from Malcolm.
That would create an enthrallment, though. And he's like, you can leave as long as you're like, mine forever
one
to
bite.
stay here. Yeah. Which that wouldn't be working.
And Carrion interrupted at this point before this gets described. But Carrion interrupts and says he was bored and that he couldn't take anymore. And I was like, yeah, Carrion. He's like, all right, like enough's enough. I'm done. No one cares. So Carrion interrupts, and Malcolm said, something's off about you, human. And Carrion continues to just like mouth off and talk shit. And point Saeris's mind eye is like taking over, and she's just, what is he doing? What is this idiot doing? Like he's gonna get himself killed. Yeah.
But Malcolm smells him and has sensed something was off. And I'm like, how come no one else has smelled him and said something was off? Or even no one said anything. They were just like, human, it's fine. Which Malcolm does ultimately say when he figures out who Carrion is. It's hard to tell if there's diluted blood. That's hard to like sniff out. But really, he's like
But Carrion's blood's
pure
not
Fae.
diluted. Yeah.
Exactly. He's pure Fae. How have you not been able to sniff him out? And I guess the glamours that Kingfisher's dad put on him were that strong. And it's probably a testament to his power. But I'm like, how? Seriously? We're just going to.
Yep. He's
fine.
been protected by magic. So this is why he was able to be shielded at this point.
So Fisher left because he felt his father's sword calling to him. That's ultimately what he says. And then this is from Saeris' perspective, he became smoke, drawing solace from Saeris' hip, and the blade became a flare of light. And this is shocking too, because it's not supposed to really work in Amentreth and Gilethrye and any of these places. And he moved with vengeance and drove the sword into Belacon's stomach, like straight up and through. And he says, I don't need magic to mess you up, you fuck, he growled. This is for me, but mostly it's for my parents. And then Madra let out a scream and all hell broke loose. And that's how we end chapter 41.
Chapter 42 is That'll Cost You, which is the line from Belacon, of course, because he's pissed now. So Malcolm's narrows his eyes and launches at Fisher. Avisith is Lorith's sword, nicks his neck, and black smoke hisses from the tiny wound. And Fisher at this point yells for them all to start to run. And again, visual. There's so many visual cues in this book, but the nick and like smoke just coming out of his neck, I don't know, it's just gonna look wild. This is an indicator too, that's foreshadowing that the god sword has a different type of power. It nicked him and smoke coming out. It's not like a little dagger that could cut. This is a god sword. Laura's sword is a god sword. And this is definitely foreshadowing of, okay, these can hurt in a different way on Malcolm.
This scene, there's just a lot of action because most of the stuff is happening at the same time. You have Saeris fighting Heron, but also like Fisher, Carrion, and Laura fighting off the feeders and is yelling. So there's a lot going on here. And it's just a very action-packed scene. So we're going to break it down as from Saeris' perspective because she's just darting back and forth and can only focus on one thing at a time. But all this is happening at the same time. I'm picturing a very slow motion here as Fisher's like, run for the labyrinth.
Heron, who looks like shit, who should be dead, is for her, and the guards let her go. She darts toward him and thrusts a dagger into his stomach. Carrion then is wielding Simon and cutting through feeders left and right, and she's like proud of him in this moment. She's like, I'm his own. But she like doesn't have enough time, to your point, of all the different moving parts to register any more than that. Fisher tells them to move into the labyrinth as Lorith is getting ready to take on Malcolm. And Fisher at this point is just like screaming at Lorith not to do this. At the same time, Heron's jabbing the hilt of his dagger into Saeris' nose. She doesn't feel any pain because we had the widow's leaf in her mouth. She's not feeling any of that pain there. And Belacon is on his knees, but he's not dead. And we know that he's not going to die. Madra yells for Heron to end Saeris at this point. And Saeris is taunting him, asking all these questions about, like, why are you still serving her? You seem a lot more like a slave than a servant. You're a prisoner to her for eternity. Heron finally charges her, and she's already waiting for him. And she makes a comment, and I think Death just remembered your name, Heron, because he had made the comment that Death doesn't even know who I am anymore. And she snaps his neck. And this is where Madra is on her knees. She drops to her knees and is like screaming for Heron at this point. Because now her little pet is dead that she like kept alive for Lord knows how long, this poor guy. So the group now is running. They're off running because Fisher's like, run, like we get the fuck out of here. And he's go to the labyrinth, and Triss is like, why on earth? You were in there for 100 years. Why on earth? Why the fuck would I want to go there? But yeah, so they're running to the labyrinth. And the way I was like excited about this as a reader, which I got why Saeris didn't want to go, but I was also, I kind of want to see it.
Yeah, maze.
Like, yeah, a maze.
What terrors are in the maze?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, exactly. And so the group is running, and they're holding off these feeders, and they realize like they can get into the labyrinth, and the feeders are going to basically not follow them there. So they all run in, like slide into this labyrinth where this is where the obsidian is like really described as extremely sharp. And Fisher talks about how the first 10 moves in the labyrinth are the same, and he's had them memorized, and he's done this for 100 years. He knows that the walls are going to move, and the walls start moving a lot faster because Malcolm is controlling this more, because Saeris is moving faster because she can feel where the Quicksilver is too. But in the center, they finally start moving where they're supposed to go, and they get to the center of this opening. And the way that this thing is described,
more thrill.
Is more thrill.
So it is this demon. More
Michelle,
thrill. I hate
them.
spiders so much.
Yeah.
And I try not to hate them and remind myself that they eat flies, they eat mosquitoes, they're pest control. So they shouldn't be bad. But their legs and their eyes and their furry bodies, no, thank you. I cannot. Here we have a giant spider on crack.
Yes.
He's the height of 3 full-grown men. And he doesn't just have 8 legs. He has many legs. He has a bulbous body, and he has like a stinger at like the end, and he uses that to paralyze you. And but he has like also a fae-like body, but his head,
like the torso.
Yeah,
but the chest cavity is like bulbous too.
Yeah, he has a distended belly, and the head. He has no ears, eyes, or nose. The face is just a massive circular mouth with rows of jagged teeth. And it speaks too, but its mouth doesn't move when it speaks, and so disgusting. But because it doesn't have like eyes, it can't see you. It's like a freaking T-Rex. It can only sense movements. So if you're still, you're fine. And of course, as they like run in here, carry on, like just darts ahead, and Fisher's don't fucking move. And Karen's like, why not? You want me to stay right here? You see this thing, right?
Like, look at this thing, right?
And Fisher's, if you don't want to die immediately, you will stay where you are. And they essentially have to blend in with a solid surrounding because it can't detect like massive objects in their movements. It's only like individual objects. So they have to blend into their backgrounds. Carrion has to lay flat and inchworm himself over to an opening, and the Fisher, Lorith, and Saeris, they like skirt the walls. And Fisher asks Saeris, because there were 3 gates that they can go into, or 3 openings that they can go into. 2 are openings into a whole other like
he's like, I don't
even
want to tell you what that is.
No, more demons in there. He's like, please, for the love of God, we just need to
get this right. We don't have the time for this.
And he basically has Saeris like concentrate, focus on the Quicksilver, and she picks the one on the far right. And Carrion's like, the one behind the spider? And of course, it's the one behind the spider. So they have to inch their way over there, and they end up getting most of the way through but with not getting interrupted. But then, because Malcolm has to fuck with them, because obviously why not? Because the walls start moving, they're like moving a little bit too. And this is where Morthrill turns and realizes they're right there. And the way it's like running but like running up the side of the walls at them, and
he's like his like stinger thing into the rock, and the shards of the obsidian are going everywhere, and he actually gets out of the enclosure and starts to chase them, and Fisher's he's never able to get out. He's not allowed to get out. Like that's not a thing. So they're chasing him, and Saeris just turns around and stabs it in the abdomen, and Fisher cuts off another one of its legs, and so it loses traction and falls, and then Lorith like goes and like stabs it through the face. Yeah. And the demon is dead, but then Fisher's, but it's going to respawn. It will respawn. And you're like, it'll what? I'm sorry, what?
No, this is like a D&D dungeon where it's like, it's okay, it'll respawn later. No big deal.
Where everybody's what? And they're like, we don't have time for this. So they keep charging to try to find, and Saeris has to slow down and turn. And they almost get crushed like multiple times because the path keeps changing because Malcolm keeps blocking it. So she knows, and Fisher knows, that they're getting close because the Quicksilver starts to chant for Saeris to find it. And they turn a corner and land on the Mountain of Coins, which the Mountain of Coins in the bonus chapter is the same room that Fisher's in when he escapes through the Quicksilver, but you don't know that till later because this is the Kindle bonus chapter at the end. So they turn a corner and they land on a mountain of those tiny coins. And this is the area where it took them over 100 years to get through the labyrinth itself. Then they land on the coins the size of a thumbnail where he was there for 8 years. So imagine this from Fisher's perspective, right? Where they just ran through it in like less than 10 minutes, right? Flat.
I'm sure it was more than that, but
Yeah.
in terms of
However long,
reading,
but and you're just like, great, I spent 110 years
but that's
here
just
and you just did
how
it.
many times did he start from the beginning and have to
Dude.
go through that goddamn maze?
Yeah. With
And
no
how many
sleep,
times did
with
he
no
pick
food,
the
'cause- yeah.
wrong part, go into the other nest of whatever is over there? How many times,
Die.
like, he knew how Morthwhirl, he like eats slowly over a series of days. Like, he knows all these things. So how much did he actually experience? Because he didn't have to
Yeah.
sleep. He didn't have to eat. Who knows? Malcolm could have been re-healing him multiple times.
Oh,
Also,
he definitely did. Yeah.
So
We know this from the bonus chapter with Taladeus, is that he definitely wanted, Malcolm enjoyed Fisher being in pain.
Yeah.
It's dark,
grotesque,
to say the least. Yeah. Lorith at this point, and this is where we get to find out here of, how did you survive here? And this is where Malcolm is at the top of the pile of coins and looks down on them. And he says he used his Fey magic to craft the labyrinth. This goes to way back at the beginning of the book where we talked about Fey magic and how there's no clear indicator of what your Fey magic would be or how it would manifest, and that it's different from everyone. And Malcolm's obviously extremely powerful, but his Fey magic crafted this labyrinth. So that's the level of magic we're dealing with here. He didn't need to sleep or eat in the labyrinth. That was the condition of what he had built. So Madra appears next to Malcolm in gold-plated armor. Of course she does. And follows after her, who all of a sudden looks healthy. He's doing fine.
He's fine.
And they mentioned that if you kill one of them, you must kill all of them from this, as they come from the same source. So this is where we find out that they're all related.
Right, as they come from the same source, though, which obviously in the end we know Malcolm dies, but the other two escape. This is just, the wording is so strange. What is the source? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Not offhand. I didn't. I caught it as odd and I put it away. Okay, that's strange. Why is it source instead of parent if you're siblings? How are you siblings?
That's why they're so evil. They were literally hatched from the depths of hell.
Maybe, perhaps. Yeah. Belican had wanted Fisher dead since the moment he was born. Nice. He says he's going to mount Solace on the wall with Kingfisher's skull and then use Saeris now, because he's like, you can't kill all of us. And he's just taunting him. So then Saeris can feel, so this is all happening at once, right? Saeris can feel the pool on the other side of the coins. Carrion at this point speaks up again, defending Fisher, which we now know, like looking back, we're like, okay, he's been waiting for his moment. He keeps trying to figure out, when is my moment? When is my moment? So he's like, all right, well, shit, I'm gonna figure out where my moment is. All right. He speaks up again and he's defending Fisher and calling Belican a bastard who handed his daughter over to a vampire. And then he's like, well, I'll just do whatever I want. Everlane is nothing, insignificant. He never loved her like a daughter. He's just, oh, she was born to serve the crown. And if I need her to die, then she's going to die. There's literally the only reason I think he only kept her alive at this point was to see how he could use her to his own ends.
Very clear.
Yeah, there's no gray about that. That's exactly what the truth is there. Carrion reveals that the venom is now being removed. Yeah, any control you thought Malcolm had isn't going to happen. We got her. No one's going to have control over her. And Saeris is like, stop telling him all this. And there's this moment where at the same time, Fisher's talking to Saeris and is, hey, do you notice how Malcolm isn't like burning? Like the silver of these coins, if there's silver in it, like if the real coin is here, he wouldn't be able to stand.
Or if any of them are actually coins.
Right.
Which is, so his magic is clearly similar to Kingfisher's dad's magic, I would think, where it's like illusions. Like it's the illusion of coins. Like he crafts things out of nothing and it seems tangible as you're in the room because nothing.
Well, you can even pick them up. Like the mind is so eluded by this. The magic is that powerful that it tricks the mind to believing that it's real. So Carrion continues to taunt Malcolm now. And he's, yeah, you're saying you're all big and bad. Come on, check me out then, basically. Like, he just drops his sword and is, yeah, you think you're really going to bite me? Go ahead. And so then Malcolm does. He bites him and he starts to drain him, and everyone's freaking out. Fisher and Lorith have to hold Saeris back because she wants to go after him. And then Malcolm all of a sudden rips his fangs, which, by the way, all his teeth are razor sharp, creepy as hell. In my mind, I see him like opening his throat and like his jaw like snapping open further, kind of like horror element.
Yeah.
Just like horrifying.
Yeah. Jennifer's Body. You remember that horror movie with she's like a vampire? This is with Megan Fox.
Megan Fox.
Yeah. And she's a vampire, and like that one scene where like her jaw literally distends from her face so she can.
I have never seen that movie.
Really?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in that scene's in the commercials, so you can literally just watch the commercials. Movies, mid, but you can just watch the commercials there.
Okay. So then Malcolm staggers back, and I was just like, yes.
His moment.
Yes.
And this is when we have a scene, or his big quote, "You really should have let me finish introducing myself earlier. It's rude to interrupt people." Yes, Carrion. And he continues, "My name is Carrion Swift, but there was a time when I was known as Carrion Dianthus, firstborn son to Rurik and Amelia Dianthus." And this is like, mic drop. I am your enemy, and I'm the reason why you're going to die today. And Malcolm's shaking, who's tricked into drinking Dianthus' blood, which we know in the next chapter it's more described. But essentially, because the Dianthus bloodline was how the curse magic, the blood magic came from, you can't drink from the original host, essentially, blood host. And his body essentially is going to start like melting away from his bones as like the blood makes its way through his system, which serves you fucking Malcolm.
Yes, it does. This is also a moment of where finally one of the three is legitimately becoming weaker, which is great. Fisher focuses on Saeris and is like, you need to find the coin. And she says she found it, but it wasn't in the center at all. Of course it wasn't. It was another trick from Malcolm where he's like, oh, now that you reach the center, the coin is here, and it's not there. It was literally never there. And it's somewhere else in the labyrinth. She runs through the labyrinth on her own to go try to find this coin because she's really the only one who can find it. And they're not going to allow the other three idiots to chase Sarah. Kingfisher's like, go run. And so she's running through. And then all of a sudden, the Quicksilver starts to call her by name. And she responds that she needs help. And the Quicksilver's like, well, let's make a deal. Let's do a bargain. And she's like, come on, look at the evil that's taken place here. I mentally am not capable of making a true bargain right now. I don't want to do that. The evil has taken over, and the Silver is just, there's always good and evil. And she's just, I love Fisher. I can't bear for him to die. And then the Quicksilver is, oh, you mean your mate? Of course, because the Quicksilver always has its way. And she's, yeah, my mate. I don't want him to die. And then it's, okay, I want a small favor. And she's got a small favor. This could be like, really anything. What does this mean, a small favor? It's small. It's a small favor. And then she's like, well, fuck it. I have everything to lose and I desperately need this. So she agrees, and the Quicksilver starts to guide her, and she runs right into Morthill's body, like the dead body that's still like laying there. And I'm like, no. And the coin was inside the mouth of the demon. And it's so described of like how she has to like shove her with all of its guts and teeth into the freaking
I was literally waiting for Morthrill to like all of a sudden like chomp on her arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was
so she plucks
waiting.
The coin out, and Morthill grunts, and she like rips her arm out of it, and then all of a sudden Malcolm grabs her wrists and demands to have the coin back, and he's standing right there, and that ends the chapter. But what did you think of this twist? That's where the coin was the whole time. Did you figure it out?
I did it, and I should have, because he respawns. We don't know if like the other demons or whatever respawns, but it's said that he respawns. So of course the coin's going to be in him. Like, why would he respond unless it's to torture him? But I had no idea.
Oh.
Did you?
I thought you were saying respond like he talks. And I was like, oh, well, of course he talks.
No, respawn.
You mean respawn. Like he regenerates.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Did you figure it out or?
No, I didn't figure it out at all. I loved it. Yeah. I was reading for vibes the very first time. I had no idea. And I was like, damn, that was good. I did not predict that twist at all. And to be fair, I was not thinking about where the coin was. I was just like, can we all not die? Please don't die. I'm not interested in anyone dying other than these motherfuckers here. And there's just so much happening too in this scene where there's so many moving parts that I was not. The Quicksilver's talking. Carrion's almost dead. There's just so much like going on. And I'm thinking about it. So it definitely threw me for a loop for sure.
I agree. So chapter 43 is titled Another Way. And this is where Saeris is like clenching the coin in her fist as Malcolm's like trying to free the coin from her. And she's demanding, this is enough. The deal is over. We're done with this. But Malcolm's no. You don't interfere with plans that have been going into play for millennia. No. His skin was melting away from his bones, but he was still much, much stronger than Saeris, and she's exhausted. But he was intrigued by her. It's difficult to detect magic in Fey blood. It's difficult to detect magic in half Fey blood. And Madra must have allowed 1 or 2 to slip through her fingers, and they hid in Zolvarn. I think the 1 or 2 are Carrion and Kingfisher's dad, are definitely like the fact that he says 1 or 2. Obviously, there probably was more, but I think
a lot more.
That was very,
specific,
like intentional. Yeah. And Malcolm had worked with an alchemist who discovered the key to his blood gift. So he wants to keep her and use her as a slave essentially for him and to do his bidding. And obviously she's like, fuck that. I'd rather die than to be enthralled or to work for you. And Malcolm throws her against the wall, kicks the sword out of her hand, and he grabbed the coin and dropped it into a leather pouch. And he then names like all the runes on her fingers. So she has earth, air, fire, water, salt, brimstone, quicksilver. The full gamut, more power than any alchemist I've ever encountered. You are capable of restoring me to my power and a lot more besides. Because we know there are 3 different tracks for alchemists that we've talked about in the past. And so far, she only works with Quicksilver. But he's saying, no, there is so much more. All these elements likely will come into play further on as we go into Brimstone, which is mentioned here. We'll see how her power extends. So she demands.
Do you think that these names are names of the future books? Do we think Salt is book 3?
That would be if we're working like backwards, right? In descending order. Then that would be fair. She hasn't released how many books there are going to be in the series, correct?
Supposedly it's a trilogy with some spin-off books. That's so far what has been mentioned. And it would make sense to me that if Quicksilver is book 1, Brimstone, and then Salt would be book 3, water, fire, air, earth. Maybe we end there, but I don't know. Just speculation. I was curious what your thoughts are. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. She leaves Easter eggs, but she's very implicit on what her intentions are. So
well, and it's already the Fae and Alchemy series, so they're not going to name it like The Alchemist or anything like that because it's already in the title of this. So that would make sense to me.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So he comments on the mating marks as well, and this is where he gets offended that Fisher never let him feed from him, but he allowed a human to mate him, and he wants Fisher as his own and demands Saeris help him to restore him to full health and build an army. And then she grabs a dagger, little dagger, and
the fact that
into his throat.
Right, that part. But he also mentions too, I could smell Saeris's blood. Like, I could smell your blood on him. So I knew he had fed from you. And the fact that I would have let him out if he didn't say those explicit words, but it's implied that I wanted him, I gave him so many chances to leave. Like, he just needed to bite me the one time. And it was just so gross. Yep. But she got his ass.
She did.
So
he does a sucker punch into her gut, but it's not like a punch. It literally impales her, and she's dying because he wants her to die, and because he loved Fisher the most when his heart was breaking. It's like, you fucked up piece of work. Saeris is insulted by his comment of our Kingfisher. Like, the fuck he is. He's my Kingfisher. And this is where she's like, I'm going to kill him. If I wasn't going to kill him before, I'm going to make sure he is dead now, because how dare he? And he laughs at her because she's weak. She's dying at this point in time. Stomach wounds are very difficult to heal. And she already knows this from before because she already got she already got stabbed in the stomach before. And he was already beginning the healing process. But then she lifted the pouch.
Freaking gut. Horrible. It's a horrible wound. Like, the worst.
Because all your organs are in there.
That part.
Yeah. And then she lifts the pouch with the coin in her hand because she uses the stab in his neck to actually take the pouch. This is where like all of her thieving in Zilvarin came into handy. And she
And
takes the pouch.
the way that moment with Fisher where she stole the ring from him was for this event right here. Yes.
It's really good. So good.
So good.
And so she unhooked it, and when he punched a hole in her stomach, she's, I will take this and just, this is my pouch now. And he snatches the pouch from her because she doesn't have the energy to stop him. But the pouch was empty by that point, and Saeris kept the coin. Then she flipped the coin, and it lands. And I can't remember which side is which, but as long as it lands, because it doesn't matter. Those people are a past anyways.
They're dead now.
And
there's no
the cries of Anarath Mor rips through the labyrinth, and a wind of ash just rips through the labyrinth. And finally the Fae were free and allowed to pass over. And she tells him, only the gods are eternal, I told him, and I cut off Malcolm's head. So yes, just pure cuts off his head with
specifically with Solace.
Yes. So that is just justice for Kingfisher's dad. I love that. And it comes full circle. And for his family in general. And then Malcolm's head, so I thought this was interesting. His head bursts into blue flames, following the rest of his body. So his head doesn't roll off. He literally bursts into
blue flames. Yeah.
And I'm like, is this because he was the vampire king? Because feeders haven't been described to like burst into flames or anything.
No.
Or is it because of Solace, or is this because of his source?
No, I was thinking Solace, because Solace, maybe the source, but I was thinking Solace because Solace is the god sword, and the god sword comes alive for her in this moment and kills him turning into blue flames. Where are you going with that?
So the source, I made a comment earlier that was like supposedly silly.
Yeah.
They're like demons coming from the pits of hell. But what if they're, and I don't know what type of beings exist in this world, obviously, but the only way to know if like their source of what they actually are or where they actually came from is real is if Belicon or Madra die also and they burst into flames. Then you would know that they're like some sort of subspecies of Fae in a way. Or like their family
like
line.
Underground.
Or because there's something else there, especially since it's at the source. Yes. But I like the Solace did it because vengeance and all. And she's like dying. Stomach bleeding.
Yes.
She knew this was like her last hurrah. And Fisher's like yelling in Saeris' head. Madra has disappeared into the Quicksilver. Like she dipped as soon as the wind came. And Lorith is dealing with Belicon and Carrion right now. Their swords are channeling. So the magic, before they weren't able to use god magic in this area before. But now they are.
Right.
So I think that's interesting
because
too. Now that Malcolm is dead, they can use the magic. So that's interesting. Because originally I thought it had to do with the land in that area and it being like dark magic, but it has more to do with Malcolm and what he did to that area and to that land. So I'm curious to see how in Brimstone, how that the land and the vampires are going to flourish now that magic can be there.
Yeah,
because it's like dark and decaying. And then Saeris passes out and comes to with Taladeus hovering over her. Fisher appears beside him, consoling her. And this is where we get a glimpse of them actually knowing each other because he references him as Tal. So pet name, their companions.
Friends.
She's going to die soon. The damage to her chest and stomach are way too extensive. Fisher wants to give her his soul. But Taladeus says he's already given too much. He already gave his soul. He's going to die if he does that. So that is not an option. And Saeris says, I will not forgive you if you die for me. There's no point in you dying for me when we're supposed to have an afterlife together.
Exactly.
And then Taladeus offers another way to save her. And Fisher doesn't want that. And Saeris is like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What's he talking about? And since Taladeus was second to Malcolm in power, which he hid his power, like how much power he actually had. He wouldn't be murdered. Yeah, he didn't want to die.
Yeah.
He can actually turn Saeris into a lord. So because she's like, I don't want to be a feeder. I don't want to be one of them. He's like, no, you're going to remain the same, at least, kind of. And Taladeus is like, she needs to consent. She needs to consent. She's dying. She has seconds. But
this is interesting that he specifically says consent. Like she's consenting.
Well, that's vampires.
Right? Like she wants to consent. Yeah.
like, that's the whole lore of vampires. Vampires can't cross a threshold unless they're welcomed in. And obviously there's like the vampires lure themselves and make it so appeasing that they want to be welcomed in, but that's like very old school vampire. But I'm sure Taladeus wasn't consenting when he turned. Or really any of the vampires who have turned has not been consenting. But here, this is, I think, showing that he is very different from
Yeah,
Malcolm,
he's
from the
trying.
other vampires, because he's like, I need her consent. This is for her. This is not for me. So I think this is where we're supposed to trust him. And Fisher obviously trusts him because he's like, she consents. And he makes the decision for her, which is
Yeah.
he had to,
Yeah.
obviously. And, you know, and he will have to really struggle with that decision for a long time, because the next events are because of him making the decision for her, because she was unable to do it. She literally was about to die.
Yeah.
But he consented for her, and Taladeus bit her.
Chapter 44 is Axis. The amphitheater is just falling apart now. Everything's falling around them. Saeris is waking up with Carrion's face above her. There's flames everywhere. Fisher is trying to form a shadow gate. Fisher's holding Saeris. Everything has gone still around her, and there's this calming voice. And it says, "He is a storm. You are the peace that must come after it. Tell me, do you believe in the fates, alchemist?" Saeris is fading now from starting to turn. The voice calls again and asks if she's ready to leave the world to go to the next. And she's saying she doesn't want to go yet. The Quicksilver then asked for the favor to be called in, and that finally the Quicksilver has required an audience with her. The Shadow Gate is opened now at this point. The Quicksilver is now saying it wants to call in the favor, because of course it does. This is super convenient timing to call in the favor, Quicksilver. The Shadow Gate's open, so now Saeris's body, all of a sudden, she can't disagree with it. And this invisible rope starts to tug her, because she's finally like, yes, you can call in your favor. That's fine. And then this invisible rope's tugging her back all the way through the labyrinth into the Quicksilver pool, and it just pulls her all the way in. And she's like, has no relic. Remember, she doesn't have a relic. She has nothing, and she was in the middle of turning into a vampire. So cool.
Let's just
She's like, what
go
the
in.
fuck? And Kingfisher is like screaming, no, Saeris, this is bad. And
Right.
finally the Shadow Gate open, like they're about to leave, and she just gets pulled through the Quicksilver.
As you're reading, did you think the Quicksilver's voices were attached to the gods in any way? Or did you think that they were just a sentient element?
Like the whole time?
Yeah.
It's weird, because at this point she mentioned that the voice sounded familiar, and then she felt like she had been talking to the voice for a long time. We find out that the Quicksilver is speaking God of Chaos this whole time.
Yeah.
But did I think that reading it that it was a god? Not necessarily, but I definitely didn't think it wasn't something a lot more powerful than we knew. I knew that there was something that tied it to the fates. There was more to it than what it was. And I do think that Zareth uses the Quicksilver as a vehicle. I still think that Quicksilver might be its own thing of itself, and it uses it when it needs to as a vehicle to talk to Saeris. Because when they have this conversation, because this is where she wakes up and she's questioning, she's like, am I dead? What the hell? She hears voices, and it's these girls that are like, oh, is she dead? Is it dead? What's going on here? And she's like, what the hell? And she looks up, and it's a bright blue sky and a field, and it's like this most beautiful tree she's ever seen. She has no pain anymore, and she's like, I'm dead for sure. Like, I have to be. What's going on here? Then she sees two identical girls, young women, both dressed in loose gray dresses. They have black hair, royal blue eyes, which would be freaky looking. And one sister asks, she's like, so what's it like? And she's like with him. And she's like, what? Hello, what? What?
Sex,
Like, yeah, like, what is sex like? And she's like, huh? What the hell? Where am I? What is going on? And they're like, we're not allowed to go beyond the Corcoran, and Dad forbids us. Our father forbids it. Nobody can touch us. And we really wanted him because that's our father's champion. And that's an interesting choice of words, too, that he's our champion. So they are Bal and Mithin, which are the two sons of Zilvarin, coincidentally, which I think there's no coincidence here. But they're also the goddesses here that are represented as those two sons. And they're twin sisters, which tracks from what we already knew earlier in this book. So the tree has beads of quicksilver rolling down its trunk like sap. Very interesting here that the quicksilver is related and tied into these worlds like this. And
Right.
it's a vehicle to the gods, not just a vehicle to other realms, but like to the realm of where the gods are as well. Which makes me wonder if this is foreshadowing that they could ask the quicksilver to take it there. If you could ask the quicksilver as an alchemist to take it wherever you want to go, are you also able to ask, would she be able to ask to go see them again? I wonder how that would work and if she'd be able
I
to.
feel like
But
only if Zareth allowed it, because
yeah, fair.
if that's their vehicle, he's not gonna. He's a busy man. He's pruning the
Yeah,
tree. He's making sure all the
literally.
decay's gone and committing mass genocide. Zareth, right? He's basically the caretaker of the tree, and the tree represents the fabrics of the universe. And it's really cool how it's described. As he's sitting on the rock, there's a pool of quicksilver around them, and then there's the tree sap and the quicksilver, and then there's like silver leaves falling down, and those are all of the different realms or the different universes. So that just shows how big the world is and how small it is to the gods, since it's literally a tree. Zareth acknowledges her as sister to Hayden and daughter to no one and mate to his champion. He even calls him his champion. And since time is of the essence, he gives like a concise rundown Cliff Notes version of his plans. And he's been watching the universe, waiting for someone like her, an alchemist, to reset the balance and clear the way for what's to come. And he points out that there's decay on the tree. The roots, there's the tree, big oak tree, and the roots flow into the quicksilver pool, and those are the anchors of the fates, and the silver leaves mark all the different realms. And he had and his family prune and take care of the tree to prevent rot and decay. And he points out that there is like black roots, black branches, and he just waves his hand and genocide, boom, billions gone. And he says there are millions of
Crazy.
alchemists, but Saeris and Kingfisher created like this axis and a strength in their bond. And he's actually tried to mess with them at multiple times. And this is actually
Yes,
how
through
we
the
find
fates.
out. Yes, we find out that why Saeris is human, because Kingfisher's mother prophesied that she would be Fae, right? And she drew her. But she did this when Kingfisher was young. And a few hundred years before Saeris was supposed to be born Fae, he actually twisted the fates so she would be born human. Kingfisher's mom wasn't wrong, technically.
Nope.
She was right at that time.
She was not
but
wrong.
he
Yep.
messed with the fates so she would be human. But still, no matter what he did, no matter what pathway he chose, they would still intersect. And that would create this like axis of power. And he's like, well, I can't prevent this from happening. There are a lot of different paths, and most of them led to the destruction of the universe. However, this path where you meet, I created this path with you being a human and you being God-bounded mates. There's an unknown there. And with that unknown, there comes maybe good, maybe bad. But I'm willing to take that chance on you. And her being like this God-bound mate and essentially a ward, in a sense, to Zareth, she can't be touched. So the other gods cannot interfere with her path. And this is where she can live her life. And she's
finally
having a hard time processing this, though. She's like, no, you can't decide how I live my life. And he's like, if you want to live your life the way you want to live your life, you're going to take this path, because all other paths is going to lead to like death and destruction, other interference. So it's this or nothing, ultimately.
Right, exactly. This whole thing for me was a lot to take in. I read this more than once, this chapter, because I was like, what the hell is going on here? Because it's such a shift. It's the first time we're seeing all this. We see it when we read the point of view chapter later on, which I read after the fact. But this is such a shift in the book. You've never been here before. And I was like, wait a minute.
Where are we?
We're talking to a god. Where the fuck am I? And I had to read this more than once to make sure I understood what the heck was going on. But yeah, the way that Saeris is just cool story, bro. Fuck all the fates. I'm just gonna figure out my own path. And this is that point where he's like, I'm gonna transform you into something the universe doesn't recognize. So that brings us to chapter 45.
Chapter 45 is titled Choose wisely. We have Saeris, who is now pushed back into the Quicksilver, and she is described in like this state where she's floating in a sea of darkness. She's perfectly happy, bobbing around in the peaceful nothingness. So it almost seems like she's kind of dipping into the afterlife a little bit. She observed the universe, and the universe observed her, and then she saw something she shouldn't have, a bird. And this is where she starts coming back to consciousness, where she's supposed to be. She began remembering things of her life, like jade, which is Kingfisher's eyes, winter mint, which is a smell, and a crooked smile, dark, thick waves of hair. And then she reached for
and the
Kingfisher.
bird is symbolic of the first
Their
mating
mating
tattoo
bond.
she gets too.
Their mating bond. She reaches for this and then sits up. So, and then she wakes up and she's on a bed and immediately just starts puking in a bucket by the nightstand, which was placed there because they knew
for her.
that she would. Yep, she would start. The room was high ceiling with dark green drapes and heavy dark oak furniture. And then Teledeus opens the door. So he calls the vomiting the Great Purge, which is what it's referred to in for vampires when they're turning. So she was wearing basically this outfit. She's had this outfit before. This is like an outfit that Kingfisher kind of picks out for her. Black silk shorts, sheer camisole, sleep outfits essentially. But she's like, I'm bare. I want to cover myself up.
No clothes on.
Yeah. And he talks about how her body has undergone change and she should be able to eat normal food in a day or two, which it took him 6 months after he transformed. So there's a stark difference between him as a vampire and her as being something completely new.
Yeah.
She's like repulsed by the term vampire. She's like, what are you talking about? And she hisses that she's nothing like him. He confirms that she isn't. You're right. She isn't anything like him.
You're your own thing.
But like her perspective of vampires is different because she only knows them as either the feeders or like Malcolm, and Teledeus was one of Malcolm's lords. She doesn't trust him right now. And he tells her, like, come look at how you are and how different you look. And she does. She looks at the mirror and she's the same, but she has pointed ears and sharp canines. She's half vampire and half fae, something no one has seen before. And they're unsure which traits has, but she's 100% not human anymore. She asks for Fisher, who he's like, well, he's around here somewhere. And not really trusting Teledeus, she reaches into his mind and felt him like concentrating on something. But she doesn't feel a sense of urgency there. She's just like, okay, I'm going to leave him be until...
He's okay.
Yeah.
Not stressed.
And
yeah.
Exactly. And then she goes and pulls the curtains and immediately like hisses and withdraws at the brightness. Her skin like is actually like burning a little bit because she's a vampire and vampires can't be in sunlight. Very true to the vampire trope.
Yeah.
But he says she'll be able to tolerate more of it soon. I guess that it just takes time to tolerate it for her. And maybe as a fae, half fae, she'll be able to tolerate more of it than most vampires just because of her, like how her blood is going to be. He's like asking her what she remembers. And she recalls the events of Gilethrye up until he bit her. Basically, the Labyrinth, everything that happened, the Labyrinth. And then when he bit her, and he says he placed a memory block. And that's something that's typically done from sires to the people that they're transitioning, since transitioning is difficult. And it seems like when he says this, he's a little bit uncomfortable about this. I think this is a note that maybe there's not a quite an enthrallment, but there's going to be a bond there because he is technically her sire. At this. He's the one that transitioned her. And then she demands to have the block removed so she can remember everything, which is brave because he was kind of hesitant, but you know, as you wish, you have the right to know. She remembers the bite, flying into the Quicksilver pool, the conversation with Zareth, Fisher and Carrion arguing like they're going to kill each other, Lorith sitting by her bedside, singing, and then 3 days of her lying in his bed, begging for Fisher to kill her, and her ultimately biting Teledeus. Usually with vampires, it's not just, you know, the one bite from your sire. There's like a mutual sharing of blood. So she ultimately has to bite him back and drink his blood as well. And that's how she's going to survive and continue her transition. And she has this internal struggle because part of her wants to thank him for saving her, but the other part wants to kill him because now she's a vampire and her, you know, previous notions of a vampire are different. Yeah, it's a lot for her to process. And
it's a lot for us as readers too. The first reading this, I felt like it was like a lot of information to take in because it all happens
Right.
really quick. And because
Mhm.
again, you're in Saeris, like she was just
This is the
spent
last
one
chapter of the
chapter with
book.
God. Yeah. And it's, you just get hit with it. You just get hit
Mhm.
with this like right at the end and you're like, wait, what?
What just happened?
Yeah.
Taladeus he's trying to comfort her in this. He felt the same way
Mm-hmm.
for centuries because of Malcolm, and he wanted to kill himself, and he said he tried to commit suicide, but Malcolm like forbade him from doing it ever again. So, but now he's dead,
Which is
and
interesting
Taladeus is
because
free.
he's free, but I wonder if two things. If he turned her and he's the sire, does he have power over her because of Malcolm having power over him? But did Malcolm have
Mhm.
power over him because he was king? Because technically she's queen.
Right.
So I wonder how that dynamic of power will work, especially in Brimstone. I'm
Right.
curious to see how that's gonna come up for them
Yeah.
and
It'll
how
definitely
that'll all
be
kind of work out.
it'll definitely be a unique line. I feel like they're going to teeter. I think it's going to lead more to a mutual pull of each other. I think it's going to lead not necessarily into a love triangle per se, just because
Mhm.
Saeris and Fisher are mated, but I think just having Taladeus there is going to be a third
The
element.
complicated.
And
Yeah.
yeah, all God bound mates, they're tragic stories. No one died yet. So we have
Oh,
to throw
wow.
in this
Thanks,
other third
Michelle.
party. But that's what it is. One person
Jeez.
usually dies. And that's what Callie Hart says. No one died. Let's just make things complicated, you know? Uh,
Yeah. I don't.
I'm curious to see. I want to see Taladeus' story arc and how this goes for him because he's such a
Yeah.
complex character. He's painted as a villain at first, but really
I
he's
like him.
not. But
Hmm.
he could have ulterior motives. I like him too, but he
Oh, for
could
sure.
be like, "Oh,
He's
well, I
been
can use
waiting
this
how
to my
long?
advantage." Right.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So,
We don't know him well enough to know if he would do that to Kingfisher though, because ultimately I
mhm,
don't think it's really doing something to Saris as it is doing something to his friendship with Kingfisher.
right. But
But
can he fight
yeah, I don't
their
know.
biological need of, the pull from like one to another if there's an enthrallment? Like, can either of them fight that? That that it might not be something
Disturbing
either of them
question
can
to
fight.
ask.
Right.
Yeah, we'll
And
have to
so
see.
Taladeus makes this quote, and I like this quote. So there are two kinds of forever alchemists. One is heaven, the other is hell. It doesn't matter what I do. Make sure you choose your version of immortality wisely. Now she's immortal, meaning she will live for not like Fae immortal, because Faes technically aren't immortal. They age, it just takes a long time. But now she's a vampire, meaning she is immortal, undying, like actually undying. And he's guiding her. He's like, and this kind of gives a hint like, it doesn't matter what I do, meaning don't concern yourself with me. I could
Hmm.
choose one way or the other, but it's important that you choose your right path. So,
Yeah, I think that speaks to a mental health standpoint as well, but also the
mhm.
way that this all happened, me immediately was just like, Saris can get pregnant now.
Yeah. Yeah, she can have a little Fae vampire babies.
She's half Fae,
Exactly.
so and she's no longer human at all. And what
Hmm.
Madra did to her human body is irrelevant.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, that,
just
that
a
is a
thought.
positive that Fisher has to consider.
Yes.
So,
It's not mentioned, but it doesn't need
mhm.
to be. It's when
Right.
they say that she's no longer human at all, it's a whole new body, whole new deal going
Hmm.
on here for sure.
Right. Carrion then comes in and he looks different. The glamour's gone. His ears are sloped, canines pointed, and he's a lot taller than before. And then Saris immediately punches him for lying because she's like, I've known you since we were 15. And he's like, well, I've known you since I was 1086. Do I win? And because he's just a smart ass.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I promised my grandmother he wouldn't tell. And then she's like, except she wasn't your grandmother, was she? And
Yeah.
then we get the backstory of how Fisher's father took him to the Lavarn to save him from Bellicon. And Fisher's father glamoured his ears and canines and brought a bag of books so he could learn about his heritage. And the person that pulled her
Yeah.
out, the Quicksilver, was Orlena Perry. And she was actually a servant or slave of Madra's. And after she pulled him out of the Quicksilver, she fled to the third and took him with her. And the books were passed down. Basically, every female in this family took care
Yeah.
of Carrion for however long they needed to. And the
So
books
the
were passed
Perrys.
down. And
Yeah.
well, the Perry's changed to the Swifts. Like she changed her name when
Right.
she vanished to the third and they just passed down. As got older, they had a daughter, and then raise her to, take care of Carrion. That must have been interesting for him because these are like maternal figures. And he even does comment, like, it's kind of weird that at first I am like their ward. I'm the one they take care of me. And then we become friends at some point, and then they become I take care of them as they're dying. And it's like this cycle of humanity versus Fae. And that must be sad how many of these women he had to like grow up with and then watch die.
It's a
and then
long
grow up with
fucking time to wait.
Yeah.
For your purpose. It's a long fucking time to wait.
He's patient. He is patient.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he was like, life wasn't the worst for Carrion. I mean, he was in Zavarin, so it wasn't that great. But
living in the third for that long? Come on.
He gave himself a pretty nice setup. Having his little trade routes, having all the money he needed. He had decent living quarters, so slept with whoever he wanted. And then Saeris, as she's processing this, she's pissed. She's like, we slept together. And he's like, you slept with him after Kingfisher, after knowing him for how long? She's like, yeah, but you didn't tell me. You were hiding something from me. He's like, I'm so sorry. Next time I sleep with someone, I will tell them the truth immediately. I should have done that for you. Yeah. But he's like, I want this to be all water on the bridge. It's nothing personal. It was just, this was my mission. This was my goal. And he changed the subject to how he survived Malcolm. He was like, well, don't you want to know that? Isn't that more fun? And she's like, Loreth already told me this.
Yeah.
I don't care. Yeah. Since he visited right after Taladeus.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Everlane is alive, which is great. Ren is watching her. Of course. And she's in a deep sleep, of course. He explains the fight with Belicon and that Madra fled. As soon as Aviciath became Angel's Breath, Belicon fled as well. And I'm trying to think, like, how did he leave? Because it doesn't really describe, like, the specifics of that. So, yeah. But it's just...
Yeah, they both went to the Quicksilver pool. I mean, that's the only way to get out of there.
Do they have relics, though? How are they traveling via Quicksilver?
I mean,
is it just because they're immortal? Or what?
Belicon had said, and Malcolm, that Saeris would make relics. So they have to know of the relics. And honestly, I feel like at that point... Right. And I feel like they are gambling with whether stay here, die, leave, maybe not die. Karen's father's blood was ultimately used to create the blood curse. And vampires can't drink from living members of the bloodline that created them, nor enthralled them. So essentially that's why Malcolm started melting, I'm melting.
Yes.
And this is why Malcolm had Belicon kill his parents. So he didn't have to run that risk ever. But, he missed the air, obviously. And Fisher remembers his parents. Fisher comes in and interrupts them. And he's like, I remember your parents, because Carrion's like, I don't really remember them too much. It's not too sad. And Fisher dismisses Carrion and is like, I will tell you about your parents another day. I would very much like to be alone with my mate. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. See you.
Yeah.
I kind of like that him coming in the room was a little bit delayed, because I felt like that made the waiting for him better, because you didn't see him first. You had to wait for Kingfisher to come into the room with her.
Right.
And he comes in and asks Saeris, did they do the right thing? So there's magic in Fisher's eyes, less Quicksilver. Ishabel had teased the Quicksilver out of his eyes, but that he's going to need multiple sessions, but she's going to be able to get it out, which is amazing. The relief he's going to be feeling. So at least one day at a time, they're getting through certain things, and she's feeling pretty overwhelmed, but she's trying to just take one thing at a time of each thing that's gone on. But yeah, they'll get there. And then she realizes, as the curtains are drawn, that she starts to piece together where she is. Because this whole time we assume she's in Kalish. We don't really know. We just assume based on everything that's going on. And we realize at this point, wait a minute, we're on the wrong side of the darn. Hold on, what's going on here? They're in Amontreath. They're in actually Malcolm's castle. And the vampire court has only ever had one king, and Malcolm never named an heir. And so since Saeris killed Malcolm, she's going to be coordinated as the new Queen of Sansaroth. And that's where the book ends. And you're like, the fuck
What?
did I
Yeah.
just read? Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean she's the
Yeah.
new queen?
Literally.
So many
Yes.
questions.
So many. So many. This book, if you read it on Kindle, it doesn't end there. You get one more chapter. That's a bonus chapter in the Kindle edition. And it's called The Maze. And this is where we talked about it a little bit earlier. Kingfisher, this is before he was Sarah. He is in the labyrinth where the coins are, and he's standing there and he's counting the coins out loud. And Taladeus is sitting at the edge of a seat that's covered in ivy, just like watching Kingfisher. He always had come for a reason, and he comes usually to bring information to Kingfisher. And you hear Morthil scream in the maze, and it just, yeah, it's unnerving. I can only imagine like this scene too, where you finally get a Kingfisher point of view, and he's just sitting there counting the coins. And I like this because it brought us, but it brought us like to the reality of what he had experienced, and it gives us this perspective that we didn't really fully have, because he's counting it as he's in something, 373 or whatever the number is, and he's like quite literally been counting them this whole time to try to find this thing, and he does this for 8 years. It's what? Because he thinks, because Malcolm told him that the coin is there, and it's never been there, and we know because Morthil screeches that it's so close to him. Coin is so close. So, like, having this point of view chapter at the end, it just adds insult to injury, because Morthil screeches, and you're like, motherfucker, he's so close to getting this coin and has no idea that it's right there.
So far away.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Fisher, what were your thoughts on this one?
It must have been so tedious, like literally coin, flip, and like he just makes a new stack, a new pile at some other corner, tries to get all the coins, and then he redoes it, because he says he's gone through the coins multiple times. And none of them has been the right coin. And he's going to remain until he loses his mind.
Until he lost his mind,
ultimately, because he has no, like, he's like, it's supposed to be here. But he knows it's not there, but he has no idea of where else to go, which is
right. He has nothing pulling him towards it. Yeah.
Right. So he couldn't block out the cries of the burning fae and vampires that are in the amphitheater, screaming Anarathmore. Talad essentially being there is kind of a lifeline to him. He would share what he could of the outside world. He told the spring in the west, ice thick on the Erin, but Fisher's like, do not speak, my friends, because he tries to bring up Ren. It's like, nope, that is going to open up a wound. I'm going to miss them. And I'm going to want to get out of here. And I can't. I have to like compartmentalize that part of my life, or I can't survive. And then he talks about how Belicon moved the troops to invade Mountain Fae for their gold. And Kingfisher's like, why does he need gold? Taladeus is like the keeper of secrets. He's like in the Game of Thrones series, like Littlefinger.
Yeah.
He harbors all the secrets.
But I like him more.
But but he has an oath around him, so he can't actually say the secrets. So essentially he has Fisher go down this thought process where he is kind of processing and problem solving himself, and that's like helping his mind. Essentially, it's like a puzzle, because his brain is turning to mush, and it's like, okay, well, let's figure this out. And he's deducing that there's a breach, or that they're going to the breach, and the Balkidder lands on the side of it. And Taladeus is like, why? Why would Belicon want the Balkidder clans? But then his oath like stops him, and he starts like coughing up smoke, essentially, because he's teetering too close to the truth. And he can't be anywhere around that. So Taladeus ends up excusing himself, saying Zovina was stirring up trouble, and Malcolm had tasked him with tampering her insurrections. And I think so, Zovina, because Fisher even says like he doesn't bring up names, like that's very rare. Zovina is going to be an issue in Brimstone. So she already has insurrections with Malcolm.
Yeah, and I also think the issue of noting that Belicon is going to go toward the Balkidder clans for something is another indicator that we're headed that direction in book 2. And Zovina wanting to take over of the ranks of the Black Palace's high blood population. Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
But she has
for Saeris's reign.
Absolutely. But Fisher also says like that she is the reason why things are tense between Fisher and Tal. So I'm curious how she has a relationship with the two of them and how she has been involved with him being in the maze at all. Because it seems like Tal is like the errand boy. Like, get your information.
Yes.
I sent you somewhere, or go torture him in some way, shape, or form.
Malcolm's them to torture him. Yep.
Yeah. But Zovina, we've never heard of her before. So I'm interested to see what type of relationship there is. And she's probably going to be a big instigator of a lot of hardships that Saeris will face in Brimstone.
And we know that if we're just getting a new character for one chapter, we're definitely going to see him in the next book. So yeah, between the Valkiter witches clans and Zovina, we're definitely going to keep seeing her for sure in Brimstone. I don't think that's going away. It would be odd to include this point of view chapter without having any other information or content. Yes,
to
absolutely
not do that. And then Fisher's like, okay, well, go on, get on with it. You were sent here for a reason, and the reason was to make him bleed. And he withdraws a pin from his pocket and pricks his finger. And Fisher comments that at first Malcolm was specific in Tal's torture methods, but then he grew bored of torturing Kingfisher for the last 110 years. All he has to do is make him bleed. And Talades hates doing this. So this is like the least that he can draw to both please what he was forced to do. Yep. Yeah. And then he disappears over the maze walls and Fisher just goes back to counting. And then the Quicksilver opens up, or starts opening up to Fisher. It's like, we should go.
He feels it vibrating.
Go. Yeah. And then he feels the coins vibrating and then the pull of the God Sword. But he realizes it's not from Nimirel, who's like perched up to the side. The ground shudders beneath his feet. He was being drawn across the courtyard. And then the ground breaks under his feet. And Tal like comes back because he hasn't gone very far. Right. And he's calling for him. Like, what's going on? And Fisher moves for Nimirel and then to the pool, and Tal's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Fisher's like, I'm gonna go for freedom.
I'm going.
This is where I need to go. Tal just wishes him luck, and Fisher can tell that he struggles with this. Like, he's technically supposed to make sure this doesn't happen, but Tal's like, no, good luck.
Yeah, and but the technicalities of how he was supposed to not let Fisher out is you're not supposed to let him out and no one's supposed to release him. This something breaking underneath and sucking him into another world is not part of that. So it's a loophole finally that works in Fisher's favor. After many, many years of nothing working in his favor, finally something does.
And Fisher feels kind of guilty a little bit because Tal now has to go back to his own prison because they were both kind of a reprieve from the horrors that they both experience. Yeah, it's almost a little bit of guilt that he gets some freedom and Tal's like stuck without a friend now. Still stuck
with.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking. I believe this chapter is also to show us as readers to give Talades a little bit more trust. Not saying that he might not be suspicious in some ways, but there's more there to their friendships.
Saeris, this is where we pick up where we already have read Saeris's perspective of this piece, but we didn't get a lot because Saeris was like almost unconscious at this point. She's like practically dying. So he sees a female, which is Saeris, lying on the ground. He reaches for Nimirel and can feel magic pulsing, which he hasn't felt for so long. And Saeris is wielding a solace, and there's a giant hole in her stomach. He recognizes her face immediately from his mother's notebooks. He immediately knew that they would be mates, but he's like, fuck. Are you serious? She's human.
She's a human.
He's like, come on. Fisher asked for Madra, though, and he knew where he was because the oppressive heat. He had known where Zilvarin was. He understood that his father's sword was right there, so he clicked it all together very quickly exactly where he was at. So Fisher knocks the guard down and realizes that the pull he felt was from Saeris, and the guard here is Heron. Of course, he sees Heron as well. He knocks the guard down and he feels this pull that he felt was originally his father's sword, but was actually Saeris. It's very delicate how he describes her. And like at this point, because she's about to die, it's like the light wings of the butterfly is the pull he feels. It's not a massively strong pull. And it's because she's starting to fade. She's starting to pass away. Mm-hmm. And he wants to take revenge on Madra, but he just feels this pull and his body's turning without him willing it to. He's already turning and walking back to her. He places a relic on her neck and just walks into the pool and says, "You had better pull through this, O'Shaleth." I told her, "For better or for worse, I get the feeling that you're about to turn everything upside down." And that's like the full ending to the Kindle book. But we know obviously that's when he first starts calling her Osha's before she's even conscious. And he has already decided that the pull that he feels is his own name for her before he even actually knows her name. This is the name
the
that
butterfly,
he gives her.
the butterfly wings, the light flap, and then
Mm-hmm.
the connection of
Yeah.
the sacred one. So yeah.
Yeah. And this
All
is
right, now
kind of
it's
where I love that this book has these lines of hope throughout it. And it just, you have to, because there's so much darkness in it that there's got to be some
so
silver
dark.
linings here. We have
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Now it's time for mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking.
You get to hop on a plane tomorrow. Where are you going?
Oh, Italy. This is like the first thing that came to my head. I just love Italy. If
Okay.
those were me and my husband, I'd go back in a heartbeat. Just the people, climate, history, so rich in
yeah.
culture. I really love Florence. You have like one side of Florence that's like all gardens and castles and everything. Then you have like the inner city hub and they have the best gelato ever.
Oh.
And you're just like every corner you're next to a chapel, or you're next to some sort of museum or some sort of monument, and it's just so rich in culture that I would go back there and spend a lot of time there. What about you?
San Francisco. I haven't been back in pre-COVID. And for those listening who didn't know, I used to live there. I lived there for a while. And there's a lot of friends I haven't seen and friends that haven't met our son that are good friends of ours. And they have their own kids that we haven't met yet. And it would be really nice to get some time with all of them and go back there for a little bit. Yeah. Gotta go back to California.
Favorite ice cream flavor? Go.
Oh, I love a mint chocolate chip, but I will tell you now that I can't really have dairy. I haven't really found a mint chocolate chip brand that does it right. Been difficult to find. I will say that there's a lot more like oat-based ice creams now, and that has been better, I will say. Kelly's Ice Cream in Orlando, if you've Orlando local, you'll know
I
Kelly's.
love Kelly's.
Kelly's does have really good dairy-free options now, which thank you, Kelly's, for doing that. And yeah, I do miss ice cream, like true ice cream, but I won't even. No, thank you. I'm not trying to do that to me or anyone around me for that. Yeah. What about you?
I'm very much a like strawberry cheesecake.
Oh.
Or like Bluebell makes this really good caramel praline. It's like the pecans, they're candy pecans. So those are like my two. Like that's like Bluebell. That's like I would get that all the time. But like if I'm out strawberry cheesecake if I can.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which is cheesecake and ice cream are two things you can't have.
Yeah. No, definitely cannot have either of those. But that's okay. It's not. Yeah, I don't really think about it that much anymore. When it first,
I feel like with society now, there's so many options.
Yeah,
that
there's a lot of options.
Alternatives.
I can't really get too upset about it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
So next week, we are going to dive into our interview episodes, and we're going to have a couple interview episodes, which I'm really excited about. We have
a big lineup,
a really interesting one. We have a couple solid weeks of really great interviews and a question list that kind of went out to everybody, and then how things segued. I'm really excited for all of that to come out because I think all the Night Owls will be enjoying some of the conversations that we had. Definitely stick around because we're not completely through with the Fae and Alchemy series just yet. So yeah, hit the subscribe button to hear more of our exciting book talk, and we're looking forward to continuing to finally dissect the rest of Quicksilver with you.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Quicksilver, suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
And you can visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, to stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our...
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, Night Owls. Until next time, happy reading.